Birria Tacos.
That's a beautiful thing.
Everyone's done a video on them. And then just about every single one of them, the most essential step of this recipe is done wrong. And today I'm going to fix it once and for all. This is quesabirria tacos done properly. Now the first part isn't so complicated. It's a basic beef braised stewed in a chili broth or consommé. And so to start, I've got a pot of boiling water on the ready. And before we get into the beef, we need to get out our bag of chilies. You should have one of these. Just a variety of dried chilies that you could use for Mexican recipes without having to worry about them. One of the main ones that I want to use, chili guajillo. And now if you just use guajillo, you'd be good, but I'm gonna get a base of guajillos for that red color. Use that much. I got some chili California. I'm gonna throw those into the mix. I'm gonna throw in a pasilla, which isn't red, but it's got that, deep raisiny kind of flavor that's gonna add to the dish. One of those mulitos, 2 chili de árbol. You can add a chipotle in there for like a little smokiness. I'm gonna keep it out. That should be good. So here, I've just got a bundle of chilies. You could use whatever really you want, but you wanna focus in on that red color. So I got a bowl, I'm gonna take the stems off and not go crazy with de-seeding. I don't mind the seeds. I'm just going to, anything that falls out naturally and then leave the rest. And this is what's really easy about this. You're just kind of cooking some chilies, some aromatics, blending it, and braising beef in it for a while. That's not complicated, it's not tricky. But part of why I never made this recipe while it was trending is there's a benefit to waiting and seeing the mistakes others make before acting. I use that to make sure that I have a comprehensive video at the end of the day that avoids those mistakes. So now my pot of water, I'm gonna take these chilies and just drop them in. We wanna break down those chilies, get them nice and soft so they blend nicely into a sauce. While those go, I got some Roma tomatoes here. Those are gonna go in. 1 head of garlic goes in. I'm gonna use about a half of an onion. Hold one side off, cut off the root, cut it in half into the water. We're gonna let all that cook until everything's nice and soft. Now, since we have the onion out, we're just gonna prep it now. This is for the garnish of cilantro and white onion. And white onion you want, because it's more edible raw. You could use other onions, but this is the proper one for a raw topping on tacos. Cut it into a small dice. If you wanna be precise with it, I'll show you an easy way. Cut it into thirds, and then just pull apart some layers at a time, and cut the size you want. Turn them, and then cut them into a fine dice. And maybe you're not like me and you don't care, but that matters when you're eating that inside of a taco. Now we can hold these in the fridge. I got some cilantro. It's got some sand and grit on it. Just gonna get it into a bowl, give it a wash. Once it's cleaned, just wrap it in some paper towel, allow that to dry. Pop it in the fridge. Now we've got our garnish. Now we need our Oaxaca cheese. Just gonna grate it finely. If you don't have this, you can use a really low moisture mozzarella. They are very, very similar. And we're gonna pour that into a quart container just so it's easy to store and access. Next up, gonna make a little spice blend. It's gonna start off with a base of paprika. Again, that's a big color addition. Go with a tablespoon and a half of that. You can do a chili powder. I've got this new Mexican chili powder. I'm gonna go with about a tablespoon of that. About a tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of garlic powder. You can eyeball it. A tablespoon of coriander, a tablespoon of cumin, a tablespoon of oregano. If you got Mexican oregano, even better. Mix that up. Now we've got a spice blend, and then I'm going to be adding some cinnamon stick or some canela. There is this subtle warmth to good birria. And I'm not a big guy for warm spices and savory food, but we're gonna add in one of these and it's just going to kind of blossom this whole thing. So I'm just gonna put it in a little herb bag because it is gonna fall apart. And then a couple of whole peppercorns. And you just kind of like a little package, tie it up. And it's easy to sort of fish out of the mix later. Now, birria tacos usually mean goat tacos if you're making them or having them in Jalisco, Mexico. Usually you don't find goat here. You find birria de res, which is beef birria. So that's technically what we're making today. And I've got 3 pounds of short rib here. You could use chuck, you could use oxtail, you could use a combination of all of these things. Again, like the chilies, this is up to you to put your little fingerprint on. Now, what I do recommend which I didn't do because sometimes time gets away from you, but that's why we have options. But to prep this yesterday, seasoned generously with salt, allow it to sit in the refrigerator overnight. You're not only gonna get really seasoned beef all the way through, but you're gonna be able to get a nice sear when we go to cook this. Since I didn't do that, I'm going to opt for salting right before searing. So now we're ready to go, just in the kind of time it took us to prep all that stuff, and I'm gonna strain it out, start to add in the tomatoes, the onions, the garlic, the chili, and now we're gonna need some moisture, but I'm not gonna use the water that we cooked it in. It's dark, I want it that color nice and bright, so I'm gonna opt for some water. Just maybe a cup for now, cup and a half. You can let it cool. I got a nice lid here, it's gonna stay on. The risk is always the pressure shoots the lid up. So I'm just gonna crack the top, start slow. Give it a first initial blend, and I can let some steam out. I also forgot one thing. I got the spice mix, right? So now we're gonna add the spice, just, 2 pinches, whatever. We can always add more. Back on and let it rip. Add a touch more water. Remember, we have not salted it yet. And since we're essentially making a broth, I really don't want to yet. I want to hold off and control the situation. You see that color? That's a beautiful thing. Let's give it a little taste. Now, because it has no salt, it should taste bland, but you should start to get a flavor profile of the chilies you blend, the aromatics, and once we get these cooked, it's all gonna start to blossom. Now, I'm gonna get my Dutch oven on the stove, get it preheated, medium heat, and we can get ready to throw it all together. Now, there's nothing like red chili infused tacos garnished with onions and cilantro to freshen up your smile. But have you ever tried whitening your teeth? It hurts. It makes my teeth sensitive. And so as a result, I never end up doing it. That was, of course, before our sponsor for today's video, Lumino, and their complete dentist formulated whitening system. Now, this bundle includes everything you need for a visibly healthier smile. You got whitening strips that are gonna whiten without the teeth sensitivity that I hate. We've got an enamel-safe whitening toothpaste. Comes with a bright 2 pen, which you can use as a whitening stick or a stain repellent. Mouthwash, and they're all peroxide-free and enamel-safe. So you can do this every day. Clinically proven to whiten teeth up to 15 shades in just 2 weeks. Lumino's stain targeting technology lifts stains from coffee, tea, red wine, smoking, all without sensitivity. And what I love about it is it's formulated with coconut oil, lemon peel oil, mineral-rich sea salt to help gently remove stains without any sort of enamel damage that's linked to peroxide and other harsh whiteners. No zingers, there's no harsh chemicals, there's no trade-offs. Lumino is the #1 peroxide-free whitening system for sensitive teeth. So if you're like me and could never whiten your teeth before and you want to give this a shot, you can get Lumino for 30% off this entire white bundle if you use my link down in the description. So you're whitening your teeth and you're getting a deal. What's better than that? In a hot, preheated Dutch oven, we're going to take a neutral oil and we're going to add way more oil to the pan than you might normally. Why? Because that oil and the fat in this dish is the key, and eventually what we use to finish the tacos. And we will be removing it if you're a little bit concerned. Then we're gonna season the beef generously on all sides and place them into the hot oil, and we're not going to touch them. We're gonna let them sit and sear and develop a nice crust. And since we did not dry them out in the fridge, we're gonna have to work a little bit harder to develop that sear. Some pieces are gonna brown faster than others, some are gonna need more time. We're gonna flip the ones that are ready, and we're just gonna work the pan to make sure that each piece is treated properly. That first side on all of the pieces of beef has gotten a nice hard sear, so we're gonna flip it and repeat that on the other side. And once they're all browned all around, then take them out of the pot and set them aside for a moment. Now we need to bloom our chili sauce in that hot oil. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn the heat off on the pot. We're gonna grab the lid, we're gonna pour the chili sauce in quickly and then immediately place that lid on. That oil and that sauce will react and start spitting, so that lid is gonna protect us from getting clipped and making a mess. Once it settles down, turn the heat back on and let that sauce cook for a minute or two and develop all of those flavors. And after a couple minutes, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add in a couple cups of water, then in with some beef stock, that little cinnamon and black peppercorn packet, like a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, a few bay leaf, and a little salt. Now we can add the beef back to the pot, bring it up to a boil, place a lid on it, drop that heat down to a simmer, and we're gonna cook this for 3 hours covered. Every now and then we're gonna just check back in, give it a stir, see where we're at. Now you can see that slick of red fat accumulating at the top. That is the secret. That's why we added so much of that oil to start. That red infused fat is what makes our tacos crispy and red. After 3 hours, the beef should be perfectly tender and falling apart. Now we're gonna place a lid back on, we're gonna shut the heat off and allow that beef to rest in the pot, in that consomme, and relax. I find this helps the beef to become more succulent and retain moisture better, almost like a post-cook marinade. Now, while we do that, we can finish up some garnishes. Just a little bit of lime. I'm gonna cut the ends off and then cut it in half. Cut those pieces in half, and then you cut those pieces in half. And you get these little segments. Now for our cilantro, just gonna bunch it up. And chop it up. Then I'm gonna take a portion of that and mix it in. If I need a little extra. Now, not only is that resting time good for like the texture and flavor and moisture level, it's also to allow that fat to settle, which we need to now capture. Now, this is the part the big mistake happens. As you'll likely see, most people will take the tortilla and dip it into the consomme, but you just now dipped it in moisture. And what we want is fat. Fat is what's going to crisp up that shell, and most of the tacos that I see are dipped in consomme and not fat. Now, how do we get the fat? Well, if you're a big holiday cook like I am, you probably have a fat separator for gravy. That's gonna work just fine here. So we're gonna go in and skim, try and get as much of that fat as we can in the ladle, and then we can pour it into here. If you get some of the consomme or the broth in here, it's okay. It's meant to separate the two and then release it from the bottom. But that red consomme gives the fat that red color that once we then coat the tortillas in them and crisp them up, give it that distinguishable red hue on the tacos that are what you look for in a birria. So you see how it separates? Now we can release the broth back in there. Now we have that beautiful red fat that we use to crisp everything up with. And now we can pull out our beef. Take out our little bundle. Can't find the bay leaves and I don't really care, so I'm gonna deal with it. Get it back on the stove, keep it warm. See that jiggle? The jiggle that the meat has? That's what you want. That's what that rest sort of gives it. Now we're gonna chop it up. We're also getting carbon steel griddle warmed up on the burner. You could use a big cast iron pan, really use anything, but a griddle is always nice to have. Now we chop up the meat. Look at that, moist. It's kind of like sticking together. That's how fatty and moist it is. The meat alone is extraordinary. It's seasoned, moist, fatty. I was gonna season it with some salt, but I don't even need to. Now we take some of the consomme and just work it in. Let it soak that up. Hit it with some lime juice. Also gonna hit the broth with some lime juice. I want that broth to be nicely acidic, especially at the end. Just give it a nice little fresh kick of lime juice. You hear that noise? I mean, if you don't hear that, you're not doing it right. So now we're gonna pour that fat into a bowl. Then we need our Oaxaca cheese, and then I've got my tortillas. So we're ready to make tacos. Set up your cheese and your extracted fat next to the griddle, and I keep my beef warm resting on the back of the griddle, so I have set up like a nice service station to make tacos. First step is to dip the tortillas not into the consomme, into the fat. Seems obvious, right? One side should be enough, and then we're gonna transfer it onto a griddle around 350 to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, there are a few ways to do this. The first way, we're gonna just take the tortilla and cook that on one side for 15 seconds. Then we're gonna flip it, allow it to soak up that fat, color the other side, cook it for another 15 seconds. Then we're gonna keep repeating that. What we're looking for is that tortilla to begin to stiffen and get about halfway crispy. And one way people like to do the cheese is to just throw it right on the griddle and allow one side to caramelize. So we're gonna go with that first. While that works, the tortilla is getting more crisp. And once we determine it's about to become too crisp to sort of fold and wrap around the filling, then we're gonna place the tortilla right on top of the cheese, press it down in there, and then once it's cooked for 20 seconds, we're gonna scrape a spatula underneath it to release the cheese and flip it. Then we can place a healthy amount of that shredded beef, and now we can wrap the tortilla. And using like tongs or a spatula, we're just gonna press it down to close it and allow it to stiffen up and set and get crisp and hold the fillings in without it opening. And you notice how the tortilla is a nice even color, there's no dark burnt spots, and we wanna cook it nice and slow to get it crispy. Once we're just about there, we can push them off to the back burner and stay warm on the griddle while we work on 2 more tacos. And a more traditional way to do this starts the same. We're gonna flip every 15 seconds to begin to crisp each side of the tortilla. When it's approaching too crispy to fold, we're gonna take the crispier side of the tortilla and flip it so it's facing up. And then we're gonna add some cheese to the tortilla. Press that cheese down, spread it out evenly, and then start to pack it with the meat. And I like to keep the meat off to one side, and then we're gonna fold it closed. We're gonna keep it pressed until it sets, and then we're just gonna keep flipping and moving the tacos around until that cheese is melted and that tortilla is perfectly crisp and red. They won't be soft. They will be perfect tacos. Then just go through and make as many tacos as you need. These hold really well, so you can like make these for days to come. And then before you know it, you're looking around your kitchen and it looks like a professional taco shop. Now you're ready to serve. Now to start, I'm just gonna put a little bit of the beef into the consomme bowl. So if we have any left over, you can sort of have it like soup. Add in our consomme and some garnishes of lime. Garnish in the consomme. That crisp is always the thing that you can't achieve when you dip it in a consomme. That's why you need the fat. I'm a straight shooter with you. This is the way to make birria tacos. You hear that? You'll notice I never salted the consomme, and that's because it didn't need any. The over-salting of the beef ended up staying in the pan and seasoning it. So guys, if you liked my work here, like waiting 3 years after a trend is cool, just to make sure I'm doing the best video that I possibly can,
That's a beautiful thing.
head on over to Patreon. All my videos are early and ad-free over there for $5, and then you can upgrade up to my cooking school. This is the place we do 2 new lessons a month that are interactive. I give you homework. We review the homework over a live stream. I grade it, talk you through it, and try and troubleshoot any issues you might be having, and you always have direct access to me. Anyway, recipe's gonna be down in the description. That's all that I have today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and go feed yourself.